And as far as somebody saying they're Wahhabi, that's haram to even say that. You know why? Who knows it's wrong to say that? Why? Why? That's a name of Allah. Al-Wahhab. Is it? Is that the name of Allah? Do you not remember I was just talking about in another section, don't make fun of Allah's names? And you're calling somebody a Wahhabi? You can't say it about yourself, and you cannot say it about somebody else. Because it's Allah's name. Don't play with it. And by the way, the people who played with that were the enemies of somebody, but they didn't want to call him by his name, his followers by his name, so they called it by his father's name. His name, he lived 270 years ago, his name was Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. But they don't call him Abdul Wahhabis, or bin Abdul Wahhabis, or Mohammedans, because they know you could catch them in what they're saying. But these were the enemies to this particular scholar and his teachings. What he was saying is that basically you shouldn't worship people in their graves, and you shouldn't worship the grave site, and you shouldn't build these big temples in there to go to. And his followers tore down those places in the graveyards, and they became so angry that instead of dealing with the fact, he brought the proof. But they didn't like it, so they insulted him, and they wrote books against him. Because it messed up their Sufi tariqas. Okay? So they did that, and they lied, and they keep on lying until today. But I've read his books. He's got the best book I ever read, translated to English, on Tawheed, and it's called Kitab al-Tawheed. How many of you heard about it? Did you find anything wrong in it? He quoted the book of Allah. And they can't argue with that, so they just said a label, Wahhabi. What really happened over 200 years ago, there was a student of knowledge who memorized the Quran when he was not even a teenager yet. He studied all of the fiqh, jurisprudence of the Hanafi. Then he began to study others, and his father, who was a scholar, told him to stop. Just stay with what we have. He said, I want to learn the others. His father almost disowned him because of it. It was very upsetting. You know, don't do that. But he wanted to learn all of it so he could understand, and he began to learn quite a bit. He became convinced that he needed to learn more, and he discovered through this learning that the people of his time were making a grave mistake. I used the right word too, because they were worshiping at graves. They were literally going to graves and calling upon dead people to help them. Righteous people, good people, but they're dead. And even if they were alive, what could they do? They could only make dua for you. Nobody's got any magic. You ask Allah to solve these impossible situations, and He can do it. And that's what he was telling the people. And some of those who were making money or getting good position in the community out of these grave worshiping deals took exception to his group because they came in and kicked over all of these monuments on these graves. And of course they had no evidence to support what they did, so instead of dealing with the rationale of why don't you look at what you're doing is wrong, instead they labeled his followers as Wahhabi. Why? Because they couldn't call him by his real name. His name was Muhammad, and they would have had to say they're Mohammedans. And no Muslim would do that anyway. So they call him Wahhabi because his father was Abdul Wahhab. So he was Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and he wrote a book called Kitab al-Iman. The book, if you read it and take the cover off and you don't know who wrote it, you'll say, this is a great book. It's very good about the belief in Allah is one and the teachings that come with it. It's kind of like a workbook. It just has a few verses or something and then tells you to go look up the rest of it. And it was given to some scholars who were attacking and saying, these Wahhabi people, so and so on. So what do you think about Kitab al-Iman? Says, it's a bad book, don't read it. It's okay. So they gave him the book without the cover on it. Didn't tell him. This is a scholar. I'm not going to tell you who. Big scholar. Current. He read it and he loved it. He said, this is the aqidah of a real Muslim, the belief system of a real Muslim. And when they said, well, here's the cover for the book, and he went, huh? And he said, astaghfirullah, I made a mistake, big mistake. All of us need to understand that whenever somebody doesn't want to admit their mistake, it's a lot easier to point and say, he's a Wahhabi. Second question, why the beard? That's funny. Why do you have eyebrows? Allah put it there. Are you asking me why I don't shave it off? Why don't you shave off your eyebrows? Why? If you're going to say, well, because everybody does it, well, now that's always a good reason to do something, isn't it? If everybody else does it, that's your excuse. Huh? What do the majority of the people of Melbourne do on Friday night? They don't come to religious lectures, do they? No. The majority of the people in this room are Muslim. The majority of the people that we invited to come, the non-Muslims, saw fit to do something else. And most of them are going to have a hangover tomorrow because of it. Am I right or wrong? So the most of the people in the world today, in the free world that I know about, get drunk, waste their money, and act like fools on Friday and Saturday night. So is that an excuse that I can go do it too? Is it? So when you cut your beard off, why'd you do it? Why? Did Rasul Sallallahu tell you to cut it or let it grow? Sahih Bukhari, volume, I think it's volume 8, hadith number 798. I think that's where it is. We can find it for you though. Let it grow. Leave it alone. Let it grow out and cut this. That's what it says in the hadith. But a brother comes to me and he says, Imam, please make dua for me. I said, okay. For what? He said, make dua, I can grow my beard. Make dua, I'll grow my beard. I said, I can't do that. He said, why? I said, that's shirk. He said, shirk? How is it shirk? Did you make dua for me to grow my beard? Shirk means to make partners with Allah. You want me to make partners with Allah? He said, no, I just asked you to make dua that I want to grow my beard. Just make dua, grow my beard. I said, I can't. Because it is Allah who grows your beard, not you. But I will make dua that you quit cutting it off. Alhamdulillah. One brother, he said, yeah, but you know my wife, she said it, you know, she really likes me to shave it off and keep it smooth. I said, you got to wonder about a woman who wants her husband to look like another woman.